In this, I'm going to talk about what should you pay particular attention to, especially in the context of when you prepared for your job interview. And let me just start by saying that I highly advise you to perform during the job interview, because it's a very competitive job market, and it's often, the differences are being made in the details, right? Now, this being said, there are three key elements I'd like to bring to your attention. First is monumental mistakes. Okay, so monumental mistakes do actually happen in these job interviews, and also for the people who actually took the time to prepare them, right? Now, where do such monumental mistakes happen? What's the context? Well, the context could be business practices for the most part. You could talk about how you corner the customer into a deal, for instance, or how you got rid of a business unit for being afraid of getting sued because of some shady stuff going on. Could be something linked with the interpersonal skills, such as you put the blame on your previous business for not promoting you, or your previous boss, and so on. So what can you do about this to prevent as much as possible these monumental mistakes? Well, my advice would be to have a more proactive versus reactive approach, and actually take your time to answer these questions, right? The second thing I like to talk about here would be getting stuck, right? So regardless of for how long you prep your job interview, you will receive interview questions or follow-up questions for which you have not specifically prepared for, right? It's a conversation after all. It's a job interview. There will be an element of surprise at some point in time. So my advice here would be to try to read a little bit between the lines, because it's oftentimes that even if the question is framed counterintuitively, the answer could be by understanding the behavior or what they're actually looking for from that question, right? But sometimes it's not possible that you answer that question or that follow-up question and if you cannot do this after a certain amount of time, and please do take your time to reflect on what's the best approach to answer that question. But if it's not possible, then you should also plan ahead to quickly get back on track, because what happens here is I know candidates who actually did take their interviews seriously, who did get stuck in the interview, and not only they got stuck, but they remained stuck for the remainder of that job interview, right? So they couldn't perform, right? Because they got discouraged, right? So again, I'm bringing this to your attention so you know how to eventually plan ahead for such situations. And the third thing I like to talk about here, and with the risk of repeating myself here in my latest videos, another common reason why people fail interviews, while well-prepared candidates, highly skilled candidates fail interviews, is because they fail the backbone test, right? So it does happen for people to prepare some amazing story banks, to do a ton of role play, to feel super confident, even overconfident about their interviewing skills. However, when they get challenged with some difficult or uncomfortable follow-up question, I don't know how to answer this, or even worse, you basically fall into the trap, into your interviewer's trap. You agree for the sake of social cohesion, right? Now, what happens here is part of this problem is because during these interview exchanges, the interviewer is somewhat the authority. I feel this with some of my clients in my coaching sessions, and when you feel like talking to an authority, you tend to agree to obey, right, more often than not. And this is where things get tricky. So long story short, beware of the backbone test. And the reason why I'm not insisting on this with more examples and stuff like that is because there is actually the opposite of the backbone test, such as, for instance, if you get challenged on a question, on an answer that you give, which could probably be a bad answer, right? You give a bad answer and the interviewer is well-intentioned and tries to get you back on track, right? Whereas if you are skeptical about the interviewer, you won't get back on track, and that's the opposite of it. But long story short, my advice also in the case of a backbone test is to really take your time and be cautiously optimistic, because what happens here, interviewers, professional interviewers, people who do this all day long actually do prepare for these backbone tests well in advance. So they had plenty of time to prepare to set you a trap if you want. So unless you take your time and be cautiously optimistic, it will be challenging for you to spot these things, right? So these were my 3 things that I believe are the most common and people who actually do prepare job interviews should pay particular attention to. I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.